Hi, my name is Jeremy Adams. I'm the Director of Operations here at Dale Adams Enterprises. We are the manufacturer of the Bone line of mechanics creepers, which includes the Bone-ster, the Bone, and the Rough Rider, along with the Tailbone and the Tailbone Rough Rider mechanics seats. The video that you are going to be watching today is going to be a comparison between the Bone, the Bone-ster, and their competitors. We are going to do various tests, including how high each one is off the ground, and I'm not talking about the actual clearance underneath the creepers that most creeper manufacturers talk about. I'm actually going to be talking about how high you are when you're laying on a creeper getting under something, because that's the most important part about a creeper. You need to be low. The higher you are, it's not going to make any sense, because it just means you have to jack the car up higher. And a lot of times you don't have that kind of choice, especially if you're working on a car and not a truck, because cars do not have a whole lot of ground clearance if you've worked on one. Some things we'll be going over are different features of the different creepers, and really, honestly, we'll be talking about why ours are superior in pretty much every front. I'll go over a couple things right now. The wheels are mounted on an outboard platform, which means that you're laying down inside and the wheels are up about here. So when you sit up, you're not going to be able to flip the creeper over. If you roll over on your side or sit up, it's not going to flip up or flip out from underneath you, as I'm sure if you've used a creeper, that happens to you all the time. It's quite annoying, especially if you're underneath the car and the creeper decides to go scooting out from underneath. And then what's the point of having a creeper? The other nice thing about the outboard wheel design on our creepers, well, one of the nice things is the fact that we can use big wheels. That's the main design of it. The outboard part was kind of a nice side effect. This is the wheel for our Bone model. It is a 5-inch wheel that makes the creeper sit about 1 3/4 inches off the ground. That's where your back is. And this is made all in America, just like the rest of our creepers. Every part of our creeper is made in America. We're the only creeper manufacturer that can claim that. Not only are they made here, the components are from here, and they're assembled here. Everything is from America. Other creepers are, a lot of times they may be 51% American. That's sometimes, if they say American on it, that's all you really have to be in order to claim made in America. Others are just all purely imported. And a lot of times they fall apart. So one thing that we do realize, yes, our products are more expensive than the competition, but when you buy our products, you get the best warranty in the industry. If you have a wheel go bad, you call us up. If it's just a tire coming off, something like that, we send you a new one, no questions asked. Other creepers, if you break off a wheel, half the time you have to buy a new creeper because you can't find the wheel or what have you. And our creepers will last a whole lot longer than the competition due to the fact that they're well made, which I'll go into later. Back to the style of the creeper, when I was talking about the outboard wheels, there's one of the competitors that you're going to see. It's a black colored creeper that has outboard mounted wheels. Problem is those wheels are uncovered and they catch on everything. If you're sitting on this thing underneath a car, you hit a jack stand, you're going to keep on bumping up against a jack stand and get stuck half the time. Our creepers have this wheel shrouds around them, which if you hit something, you're just going to bump into it and just slide around it. And another nice feature of that is if you have long hair, which a lot of mechanics do, it won't get caught up in the wheels. One thing you'll notice in a lot of the videos coming up that Josie, my mom, Josie Adams, she's the one that's going to be doing a lot of going to be our guinea pig for a lot of these tests. She has to hold her hair behind her head when she's rolling back and forth, because you'll see it's really close to these casters on a lot of these creepers. And one time that we don't have on film here, she actually did get her hair caught in the casters on one, and it was kind of picking up with her, which is not a very pleasant thing. Any of you people with long hair that have been working on creepers before, you know how frustrating that can be. Another thing, we are not going to be going over our Rough Rider creeper model. The Rough Rider, I'll grab a caster right here. This is a caster for the Rough Rider. As you can see, it's fairly different from the Bone. Angle these correctly so you can see them. The Rough Rider has a fair amount more ground clearance in between here and here. The entire reason for the Rough Rider's existence was it was requested by the California Highway Patrol. They wanted something that they could use on the side of the road. So the Rough Rider gives the Bone more clearance. It uses the same body as the Bone, so we decided not to review it along with the other ones because it's going to have about the same properties. The thing it does is it makes it sit up higher off the ground, so there's clearance for them to be used off of the dirt, grass, even hard-packed gravel, as long as there's a firm substrate underneath it. If it's soft, deep gravel, nothing's going to work on that. It's like a Jeep, you sink it to its axles, you're stuck. So this is that wheel here. This is the only time we're really gonna go over it. I do want to make the comment that this is the creeper that is preferred by the military now. It's preferred by Highway Patrol in both U.S. and Canada. We sell a boatload of these things to governments all over the place due to that feature. It has its own NSN number, and a lot of military publications have actually talked about how this is the top of the line creeper if you want to buy a creeper. So I'd say that's pretty good kudos from the government for us. So without further ado, I am going to get into the comparisons here, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this video. Here's one of our casters, and I'll show you what makes our casters better than the competition. First off, we use big wheels. The Bone and the Rough Rider both have 5-inch wheels. The Rough Rider has one that's about this in diameter, but it's a little bit wider, and it has treads on it, so it's better for going off-road. And it has more ground clearance to give the creeper more height. But they all look generally like this. Bone-ster is a little bit smaller, has 3-inch wheels to be more of an economy model. But you can see in here this nut. It's a 9/16 nut that we used to assemble them with. Where creepers, all other creepers come with a center rivet here that is not adjustable. If ours, as you use it, as with any other caster, things do start getting loose, but with ours, all you have to do is give that a quick 1/8 of a turn or so, and you're going again good for quite a while. With the other ones, as the casters wear out, you eventually just have to replace them if they wear out before the creeper does, which usually creepers wear out pretty quick as well. Another thing that we've done is just to individualize ourselves a little bit. Since we decided to make our own casters, we decided to do this kind of a Mercury wing design, which, well, it has no real functional element. We believe in some design to go along with the form of something in order to make it a little bit more interesting. And of course we have USA stamped right on there. These are made in a town about 2 towns over from us. And we actually, the metal forks are made in that town, and we make the wheels right here in our shop. Here I have placed the Bone Creeper underneath its chief competitor, which, as you can see, has similarities in design. It was actually, we consider it pretty much a direct knockoff of the Bone. It's quite a bit wider than the Bone. If you look at it, the wheels stick out quite a bit further. While the outboard wheel design is what makes our creeper superior, this competitor obviously uses that design as well. But if you can see, the casters are completely unshrouded, so they'll catch on pretty much anything when you're rolling underneath a car or hit a jack stand. Ours are covered by these wheel pods that keep your hair from getting caught in them, and if you do hit a jack stand, you're just going to bump into it and roll around it rather than get stuck on it. As you can see, it is quite a bit wider.
I mentioned before that the Bone doesn't get stuck up on things when you're trying to roll underneath the car. You can see here where Josie's rolling underneath the car here, and when she bumps up against the tire, the pod just kind of pushes around it, so which is handy if you're underneath the car, so you're not getting stuck over and over again. However, with the competitor, as you'll see shortly, its casters are open and not covered by the pods, so they bump into things really easily, just like you can see here, where she keeps bumping into the wheel and it's not giving her any opportunity to slide around it. And when she's underneath, it does the same thing, getting caught there, and it's just pretty annoying when you're trying to work underneath the car and everything is getting stuck and you don't have the mobility that you really need. Here we have the Bone. You'll see that there's a lot of clearance between Josie's head and the bottom of the running board on the car. A lot more than you'll see in some of the other creepers. The next little shot shows that her stomach is exactly 9 inches off the ground when she's laying on it, and you can see the level marks that. Next, you'll see that it is next to impossible to flip the creepers over due to the outboard wheel design. Now we have the Bone-ster. You'll see that, like the Bone, it also has a large amount of clearance underneath the car. And you can also see that it's at about 9.5 inches off the ground at Josie's stomach. So it's just a tiny bit higher than the bone actually, but you'll see it's still far lower than anything else. And just like the bone, the outboard wheel design keeps it from being flipped over when you try to bounce on the ends. This is what we like to call our chief knockoff, as it pretty much shares a lot of the design elements of the bone, just without the best functionality. You can see it is much higher off the ground. Her head is practically hitting the underside of the running board. And there's the proof. It's at 11 inches, where the bone is at 9, so this is a full 2 inches higher, which is 2 inches less ground clearance that you have. But the outboard wheel design does keep it from being flipped over. The next creeper we have here is one of the premium creepers on the market. You'll see that it has a single peg design for the casters and features 6 casters. The single peg isn't nearly as beneficial as a mounting plate like on our bone creepers, as it can snap off if it's run over or pushed too hard. You can see here that it actually drags on the ground if you take the center wheels out, so those are actually completely necessary. And under her car, you can see how close her head is, because the neck pad is actually 6 inches off the ground. So there's not a whole lot of clearance there. And here you can see the height at her stomach is just under 10 inches, about 9 7/8 inches. And when you sit up on these creepers or lean over to the side, you can see that they flip up pretty easily or flip over on their sides, which can be quite annoying. This next creeper is pretty similar to the yellow creeper in that it has 6 wheels and a kind of a high headrest. This one is made in China entirely. But the casters do have a better design than most. They have a mounting plate, as you can see. It doesn't have 4 holes, so it's not quite as good as ours, but it is better than a single peg. However, if you take those casters out, you can see it will drag the ground, especially with someone a little bit heavier than Josie here. You can see her underneath the car. There's not a whole lot of room for her head, like on the yellow one, since the headrest is pretty high up off the ground. And her stomach is just over 10 inches off the ground on this creeper. And like the yellow one before it, if you sit up on the end, or if you stand on the side or roll over on the side, you'll flip it up pretty easily. And finally, we have the traditional metal frame creeper. You can see it also has the 6 wheels, and they're using the single peg design. As you'll see later on, that breaks off pretty easily. We tried getting a wheel off so you can see it closer, but these were loctite on, so a little bit tough to get off. The frames do bend pretty easily if they're run over, though. And you can see that there's not a huge amount of clearance underneath the car for her, because the headrest is fairly high up off the ground as opposed to one of our creepers. Her stomach is 10.5 inches off the ground, which is quite a bit higher than ours as well. And like the yellow and red creepers before it, it suffers from the same fate of sitting up in the end or rolling over on the side. You can get stuck up on it. This one also has open casters too, so you can get your hair and your shirt sleeves caught in it really easily, which can be quite painful.
We're going to do a comparison now of how high these creepers actually are on the height-wise. And I'm going to use this handy scale for you to see it. First, we're going to start with the steel frame creeper, and we'll start with the highest point on it. Your head is laying right up here. So if you see that there, you're about 4.5 inches off the ground where your head is. So that's going to be the point that your head is going to be at when you're getting underneath the car. Your head's probably about 6 or 7 inches high, so you're going to need a good foot of ground clearance underneath the car when you're doing that. The side here, as you can see, actually we'll go by the metal frame, that's just under 4 inches high, where the pad is just under about 3 3/4. So that's how high your body's actually laying. A lot of creeper companies say that, oh, we have 1 inch ground clearance, 1.5 inches of ground clearance. Well, ground clearance doesn't mean anything on a creeper if that's not how high you're actually laying. That just means how little clearance there is underneath it. Now we'll go with the Bone-ster. With the Bone-ster, your head hangs off the end, so the Bone-ster and the bone. So your neck goes right here, and your head's here. When you're under the car, you can put your head here. This one doesn't have a headrest. We're actually working on one right now for it. But your head is hanging down here, so at your highest point, you're going to be right about right here. So there, you're about 7.5 inches when you're getting underneath the car, versus 11 or so there. You can see here at about 3 1/8 inch from here to the floor. That's how low you actually are. The highest point of the creeper on the side is just about 4 inches. But the key part to keep in mind is when you're laying on it, this section here is concave, and your back actually goes down the middle. So where you're highest in the stomach area, we're actually the lowest. So where we say that we have 1.5 inch ground clearance or so on this, we mean that your back is actually 1.5 inches off the ground, where on a creeper like this one here, your back is 3 inches off the ground. So there's a huge difference in the height, and when you're getting underneath the car, as you know, height matters. So don't believe the other creeper manufacturers when they're saying that you have 1.5 inches of ground clearance. You need to actually do the measurements and see they actually have 3 inches. This one here, the major problem with this is its headrest. While the creeper itself is pretty low, it's at about 2.5 inches at its lowest point there, which is pretty low. That's where your back is. It doesn't mean squat with this one, because your head is all going to be all the way up here. And you'll see in another part of the video where Josie's laying on it and her head is almost touching the underside of the car. So if you look here, your head is about 6 inches off the ground before you're even getting underneath the car. That's not a whole lot of room to work with. This one down here suffers kind of the same fate, but it's a little bit more along the lines of 5 inches off the ground. But again, your head is still sitting up quite a bit higher. This pad's a little bit softer, so you can at least squish it down. On the yellow one, it's a harder pad. And on your lowest point here, you're looking at around 2.5 inches, as opposed to the Bone-ster's 1.5 inches that you're actually laying at. But again, with your head this high, it doesn't mean a whole lot. The bone, we found, you'll see at another video, is actually even lower than the Bone-ster when you're laying on it, because the concave shape is even more pronounced. But again, your neck goes here on the neck pad, and your head hangs off the end. You don't really put your head up on here until you're underneath the car working on something if you need to. But here, you're about 3.5 inches off the ground. So that's how high your neck is when you're getting under. So again, you have quite a bit more ground clearance than in the others. And on the side of this one, you can see it's about 1 inch and 3/4 or so off the ground, and just under 4 inches on the sides at its highest point. And finally, we have our chief knockoff creeper, which at its highest point here, you can see is 6 inches, which is a lot like that yellow creeper. This manufacturer keeps going on about how low of a creeper they are, but that couldn't be any less true. At 6 inches, you need, again, 12 inches or more of clearance underneath the car before you can even get underneath it. And the pad here, you're laying higher than any of the others. Your back is 4 inches off the ground, as opposed with the bone, you're 1 3/4 inches, and the Bone-ster, you're about 1.5 inches. So don't listen to the hype when they say that you are low to the ground with this model. You really aren't. This section here is going to be the fun part of the test. We're going to take this Ford Escape here and use it to run over the creepers, which is a pretty common problem in shops. People generally run over their creepers, and here we'll see exactly what happens with each one when it gets run over and see how they all fare.
The first creeper we ran over was the bone. As you can see with the first attempt, it just kind of got pushed out of the way by the tire, which happens pretty often when you're trying to roll over our creepers. So we positioned it differently, and we were able to roll it over with pretty much zero damage other than a little bit of stress stripes, which you'll see later. We also did a run down the middle, which did absolutely no damage other than to scuff the plastic a little bit. So this creeper's still perfectly usable. There's a stress that you can see there a little bit, and you can see a little bit of dirt from the tires. That stress is purely cosmetic. You could even take a torch to erase it. And on the other side, you can see that there are scuffs from scraping along the ground, which is pretty normal. It's not going to hurt anything. And all the wheels still spin freely. You could get right back down on this thing and roll around like nothing ever happened. As you can see, the Bone-ster doesn't like to get run over if you hit it from an angle either. It's difficult to run these over, period, but if you catch it just right, like you can see here, it will be run over. They hold up even better to being run over than the bone, since they're a little bit lower profile. And if you go down the middle, it doesn't affect them at all either. As you can see, there's just a little bit of scuffing on the bottom of the thing. All the wheels are perfectly intact, spin just fine. You can use this creeper over and over again, even though it was just run over, which with the other ones you can't say the same other than the bone. Here is our chief knockoff creeper again, and you can see as we run it over here, pretty much gets folded underneath the car. The frame gets bent right there, and it snaps a wheel off pretty bad, as you'll see in a little bit. If you run it over down the middle, it just flexes down. It doesn't really hurt it. As I said earlier, when these things get caught on jack stands, they can be annoying, but now they can also catch on the tire, and as you can see, it just gets run right over. Here's that wheel that was just run over, so that would have to be replaced. And here's the one that got run over with the first video that was completely demolished. Next we have the traditional metal frame creeper, and as we run it over the first time, it does bend the frame. As you can see it wobbling there. Going over the middles where it really gets it, you can see it pops a wheel off. It goes flying across, and now you can see that the frame is really nastily bent up, and wheels missing. This thing is completely unusable now. Here's the red 6-wheel creeper. As you can see, go over it, and it does bend the body a little bit, but the casters for the most part hold up okay due to the mounting plates that they have. You can see the top of the body's going to collapse in, which makes the creeper useless. You can't really replace a caster. It wouldn't do any good in that case. And if you run over the end here, it just damages it even more. You can see the body's just kind of fold up, and this time it does smash a wheel. Finally, we have the yellow 6-wheel creeper. You can see run over one end, and just like the red creeper, the body folds up, which sends the wheel off at an angle and renders it pretty much useless. The caster held up surprisingly well, though, so I have to give it kudos there. And when you run it over down the middle, you'll see a similar thing happen where the body's dimpled and the casters are at an angle, so this creeper is no longer usable.
There you have it. I hope you enjoyed our comparisons and what we did with our creepers here, and I hope you found it as informative as we did when we were working on all these things. I think it goes without saying that we are the top mechanics creeper manufacturer out there right now. I know we're scratching our back by saying that, but we've done everything we can to design out the flaws that most creepers have. Yes, we do realize once again that we are more expensive than the competition, but it's one of those things where you do get what you pay for. You can go to Harbor Freight, you can buy a creeper for $20. That creeper probably costs $2 or $3 to manufacture. What are you getting for that money? You'll buy that creeper, sure, you'll use it for a year, but then you have to go out and buy another one. And once you've bought a few of those creepers, you've already gotten up to the point of what you would for a bone. We have people we started selling the bone around 1995. We have people that call up every once in a while and say they wore out their creepers on their bone that they bought back in '95, and we send them out new wheels for it under warranty. So, and we're warrantying creepers that are pushing 20 years old. Yes, we do know that there are some other creepers out there that have lasted that long, but it's mainly the people that have hardly ever used them. People that use our creepers are professionals that are using them day in, day out. There's people that have told me that they're literally using, the creepers are in use 24/7 in bus garages and stuff like that. So we get lots of good feedback. We love hearing from people. I I hope that if you have any questions or comments on this video, you will contact us. Our website is www.bonecreeper.com. Should be on your screen right about here. And also you can email us at sales@bonecreeper.com. Our website will have all the information you could possibly want to know and more on our creepers. There are some videos on there that we have with our tailbone and our creepers that have been on television. The DIY Network's Cool Tools show is featured on there. Jay Leno has done a nice feature on us with the tailbone and the bone at his shop in California. And we have all the information on our warranties and what have you, and some of our largest distributors are on there as well. Again, we welcome any questions. I hope you enjoyed this, and have a good one.